Ray. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball.
Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win. Now the 2-1. Line drive to the base hit. Justice has scored the tying run. Green to the plate. And he is safe. Safe at the plate. The Braves go to the World Series.
Have reserved seats somewhere along one of the baselines that sat when they were children and cheered their heroes.
Gibson swings and a fly ball to deep right field. This is going to be a home run. Unbelievable!
A 3-run home run for Buckington. The Yankees now lead it by a score of 3-2.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mazeroski has hit a 1-0 pitch over the left field fence at Forbes Field to win the 1960 World Series.
They'll arrive at your door as innocent as children, longing for the past.
The Pope arrived at Yankee Stadium. As one enthusiastic announcer put it, he is standing on second base.
Reggie Jackson. Long drive right field. It is goodbye. Big World Series. The Blue Jays are World Series champions as Joe Carter hits a 3-run home run. Racker throws. There's a long drive. It's going to be, I believe, the Giants from the pennant. The Giants from the pennant. The Giants from the pennant.
The 0-1 pitch. A liner off Nagy's glove into center field. The Florida Marlins have won the World Series.
The memories will be so thick, you'll have to brush them with your faces.
The 1-0 delivery to Fisk. He swings, long drive, left field. If it stays fair, it's gone. Home run. The Red Sox win. And the series is...
Lolis fires. Ball is hit high in the air. This should be the series. Freehand waving everybody away in foul territory. Detroit wins. Here's the pitch to Willie. Here's a liner straight to Richardson. The ball game is over and the World Series is over. Willie McCovey hit it like a bullet. A line drive right.
Baseball to mark the time.
The Oakland A's take. I'll tell you what, we haven't heard.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Candlestick Park for Game 3 of the 1989 World Series.
It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again.
Frank Robinson, the right-hand batter.
Long drive to left field. Way back. Gets it goodbye. Home run.
Base hit loaded, 1 out. Pena in a jam. The Twins are going to win the World Series. The Twins have won it.
I see with 1 out. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run. And the
Willie Mays just brought this crowd to its feet with a catch, which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people.
This field, this game, is a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good, and it could be again.
Broadcasted live.
Hey! Who wants to have some fun?
There are balls coming from all over the place. Left field, center field, right field. See, this is the kind of thing, quite honestly, right now, that makes you want to see the Chicago Cubs team lose.
Now, you just saying you want to have fun, or do you really want to have fun?
It'll be fun.
Will the next person that sees anybody throw anything onto this field, point them out, or get them out of here? You don't live in Cleveland. You live in Cincinnati.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
That is the farthest thing in the universe from the truth.
Hello, everyone, live. It's the Dan Scott Show. And right there is your host, Dan Scott.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the program. I am indeed
Dan Scott, good to have you with us as we get set to take you through another hour this morning, and a lot to get to with Furman basketball having a very successful senior night last night at Timmons Arena. Paladins baseball struggling at Clemson with a few bright spots that we'll talk about. And, of course, Dave Glenn of ACCSports.com. And the biggest news in the Atlantic Coast Conference coming off the field or the court again in this instance with the ruling yesterday from the NCAA denying Louisville's appeal and forcing Louisville to vacate its national championship. And the banner actually has come down, or is in the process of coming down anyway. So it's going to be a busy day. We are happy to have you with us as always. Hope that your day's off to a good start. We'll try not to mess it up if it is. And by the time it's all said and done, hope that we've learned something we did not know, which again is easier for some of us than it is for others. It was a big night last night for basketball. We're going to lead with that in the next segment. Let you hear from Coach Bob Ritchie. Let you hear from Daniel Fowler, one of the four seniors, along with Andrew Brown, who led Furman in scoring. It was also a pretty big night for baseball with Furman playing one of its two annual games against Clemson and going over to Doug Kingsmore Stadium, having that on the plate for the first midweek game of this 2018 baseball season. And very interesting how the game developed, and we'll talk about it coming up in just a little bit. But it was a close game into the middle portion, and then things got away down the stretch. But there were still some positive signs, and we'll talk about those coming up in just a little bit as well. So it's a big day as always, and we look forward to spending the next hour with you. It will go in a hurry. One thing that I want to talk about here at the beginning of the show that's not sports related, but it's something that hit me personally this morning when the news broke about the passing of the Reverend Billy Graham. You may have seen that, age 99, long time preacher of the gospel, traveled the world doing his famous crusades. The number of people that they say he preached to in live audiences, not counting television, but in live audiences is up to close to maybe in excess of 250 million people over the course of 6 decades. It was an incredible ministry, and he lived a very long and fruitful life, and as easily the most famous evangelist of the 20th century in America, and even into the 21st century, his passing is definitely going to leave a void. I just have to share a personal story. Growing up the son of a preacher, I'm very familiar with everything that goes into putting together a sermon, watching my dad do the things that he did over the years. And obviously I was familiar with who Billy Graham was, but in the interest of full disclosure, I very rarely, if ever, had listened or watched anything that he did on television from the time I was a youngster all the way up through adulthood. It just wasn't part of my life and my lifestyle, more importantly, at that time. And that all changed, of course, in 2012 when I gave my life to Christ and began a different journey that I'm still learning on a daily basis, and there are some hard lessons along the way. But in the summers of 2014 and 2015, I spent practically the entire summer, both of those years, on the road doing deliveries out of a van, getting jobs off of uship.com, delivering canoes for Andy O'Mara when he had the canoe factory up here in Travelers Rest. And both of those summers logging over 45,000 miles from really late May through the middle portion of August. So I was on the road a lot, to say the least. And one of the ways that I passed the time, probably, I would say a good 65 to 70% of the time I was on the road, both of those summers, I was listening to old Billy Graham messages that you can find on the website, billygraham.org. And they've got them categorized and cross-referenced where you can search them by topic, you can search them by year. It's really a phenomenal thing. There are, I want to say, over 1,600 of them there, and they span the LA tent revival in 1949 all the way up through, I believe, the last messages that he did before he retired in 2005. So that is a long list of things that are there to listen to, and some of that are his crusade. Some of it are the messages that he gave on the Hour of Decision radio show. So that's what I did. I listened to those constantly and listened across all decades, from the 1949 all the way through the 2000s, and it was almost like studying at the feet of a great master. It was a class in theology, really, is what it was, but it was also a tremendous blessing, and I feel like I grew close to him, even though I never met him during that time. So when I heard this morning, listen, at age 99, you are, you're living on significant borrowed time anyway, and so he had a long, full, happy life and did it in the spotlight. And the amazing thing about it, especially in the world that we live in, is there's not one even remote suggestion that he misappropriated any finances, that he had any sexual liaisons with anybody. In fact, he had a hard and fast rule, which has come under some mockery of late because of Vice President Pence calling it the Billy Graham rule, but he would not be alone by himself with a woman in another room. Whether it was in a meeting or whatever the case may be, he did not put himself into any position that would compromise who he was, what he stood for, and more importantly, who he represented. So, I just felt after those 2 years, I felt like I knew the man personally, and have continued to listen to those messages on and off in the ensuing couple of years. And I have really grown to love and appreciate the message that he spread, the way that he did it, because he cut through all of the garbage that we have allowed to permeate the church today. And he got it down to the basic tenet that it's a one-on-one relationship with Jesus Christ. And that message was consistent over the course of his entire ministry, and it's there to be listened to. On my social media this morning, I shared the link to one of those messages, and it happened to be one that he gave right here at Furman University in 1971. You remember Furman used to be a Baptist college. It's one of 3 messages that they have recorded that he did in the city of Greenville. 2 of them are from the 1960s. And this one, he was speaking, I believe, to a group of students assembled. But it's on my social media if you want to go check it out. It's from 1971. It's pretty interesting that there's a little bit of that history here, that it happened on Furman University on that date all those years ago. So I just wanted to kind of share a few thoughts on that this morning as we get underway. Billy Graham passing away at the age of 99, and we do have a little bit of an inroad to the family and organization there, because that's who Billy Davis works for. He works for Franklin Graham and the Billy Graham Evangelical Association. So we'll pass along our condolences through Billy and celebrate a life well lived and a reward well deserved. Now, having said that, we're going to get to sports after the break. We'll come back and get into some Furman basketball on the other side. First, I got to tell you about the Atlanta Bread Company. I had breakfast there this morning. I am here to report that, once again, it was fantastic. People were great. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Got my coffee. Got a chance to kind of unwind a little bit, get my head cleared and ready for the program today. And I just highly suggest that you go check them out. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, They've got it all for you, and you will love the food, and you will love the people. It's the Atlanta Bread Company, Cherrydale Plaza in Greenville. Please thank them for what they do in support of our show. When we come back, we will hear from Bob Ritchie. We'll hear from Andrew Brown and Daniel Fowler, and we'll talk Furman basketball on the other side as the Dan Scott Show continues right after this. The Atlanta Bread Company wants to make your dining experience as convenient as possible, especially if you're ordering takeout. Go online to atlantabreadcompany.com, place your order there, and pay for it too. Then, when you get to the restaurant at Cherrydale Point, you breeze right by the cash registers and go straight to the pickup counter where your food will be waiting. And speaking of food, try the new Shrimp Po' Boy, a delicious and surprisingly healthy addition to the already great menu. That's the Atlanta Bread Company, Cherrydale Point in Greenville. When the Furman baseball team goes on the road, it travels safely, comfortably, and with the latest technology with Jeans Tours and Charters. Jeans has been a Furman favorite for decades and has serviced Furman baseball for over 20 years. Take it from head coach Brett Harker. Book your next road trip with Jeans. Jeans Tours and Charters online at jeansbussvc.com or call 864-242-1673. Jeans Tours and Charters, servicing the upstate since 1980.
If you've been sidelined by an injury, the St. Francis Sports Medicine team is here 24/7 to get you back on the field. Our highly trained network of physicians, athletic trainers, and physical therapists treat all types of sports-related injuries, even those that don't occur from playing a sport. Call the St. Francis Hurt Line at 675-HU-RT for priority appointments or at-home advice. Again, that's 675-HU-RT.
The madness begins here. Make sure you're at the U.S. Cellular Center in Asheville, North Carolina, March 1st through 5th for the 2018 SoCon Basketball Championship presented by General Shale. Watch your favorite SoCon teams compete for a championship and a berth in the NCAA tournament and take part in exciting events like the Downtown Dribble and the Ingles Jam Fest. Book your travel and tickets by logging on to SoConHoops.com or by contacting the U.S. Cellular Center box office. The madness begins in Asheville. Get your tickets today.
All right, we are back. Good to have you with us as we continue on this edition of the show. I'm Dan Scott. Good to have you along. Want to tell you a quick word, if I can, about OpSource Staffing, connecting lives for the better. OpSource Staffing is an independent, faith-based, privately held staffing, recruiting, and workforce management company that began back in 2007 with a mission to serve and connect great people to great companies. With OpSource, it's all about the relationship and not the transaction. They believe that by building relationships, they'll become an integral part of your overall staffing experience. They have 5 branch locations: Greenville, Spartanburg, Gaffney, and Charleston in South Carolina, and also one in Arden, North Carolina. So to find out what they can do for you, you can give them a call today. That's OpSource Staffing. Streamline your contract workforce for the better. Toll free 866-870-8133. 866-870-8133. Or you can see OpSource Staffing and just add .com to that, and that's the website, OpSourceStaffing.com. Well, last night, the Paladins on senior night got a big win, 22-point victory over VMI. That's 4 wins in a row. And you put that into context with the madness that took place in the Southern Conference last night, and things are starting to shake up significantly here with 2 games to go in the regular season for everybody. First of all, how about the Citadel not just beating ETSU, but beating ETSU in Johnson City 84-82 last night. This was the first game that East Tennessee State played after the announcement came earlier this week that they gave Steve Forbes, their basketball coach, a contract extension and they're paying him $650,000 a year. Yeah, a basketball coach in the Southern Conference is getting paid $650,000 a year. In the first game that they get after that announcement, they go out and lay a colossal egg. They're still 14-2, but with Greensboro's win over Wofford last night at Wofford, that means that once again UNCG is just a game behind ETSU for first place in the league. And remember, the regular season champion, if they don't win the conference championship, gets an automatic bid into the NIT. So it's the best of the consolation prizes if you don't make the big dance. So that's kind of what's at stake. Well, not kind of. That is what's at stake here for whoever wins it. And if the champion goes on, then like we had last year at a three-way tie, ETSU won it, went on. UNCG went to the NIT instead. But that loss by Wofford also dropped them a full game behind Furman into fourth place in the league. So the Paladins are all alone in third place now at 11-5 in the league. Just won their 20th game of the season. And Wofford is 10-6. Then Mercer is 9-7. Western Carolina is 7-9. Those are your top six teams. So if the tournament started today, Furman would play the 8:30 game on Saturday night against Western Carolina in the 3-6 matchup, the final game of the evening session up in Asheville. Now, there's still basketball to be played, as you know. The Paladins go to Western Carolina on Friday and to East Tennessee State on Sunday. So there's a lot still that could happen in this thing. But it's interesting. Last night proved to be an evening that really shook things up quite a bit. And now UNCG is just a game out of first place with 2 to go. Furman sole possession of third. And meanwhile, Mercer continues to be red smoking hot, man. They are 9-7 after their win over Western Carolina last night and 16-13 overall. They, along with the Paladins, probably the hottest two teams in the conference at the moment. So that was the league shakeup. Furman with a nice performance last night. Kind of workmanlike again, I guess you would say, but 4 players in double figures led by Andrew Brown's 15, Daniel Fowler, Jordan Lyons with 12 each, Devin Sibley with 10, and of course it was senior night, and those 4 guys, Sibley and Fowler and John Davis III and Jeff Beans, have been the cornerstones of the turning around of this program. And for them to go out with a 22-point win and their 62nd win as a group in the last 3 seasons, counting this year, that is approaching a school record for a span of 3 seasons. So this group has been a part of history. Last year they tied the school record for most wins in a single season at 23. They have a chance to get beyond that this year and have a chance to also get the record for the most wins in a 3-year period in school history. The thing they want most, though, is an NCAA tournament appearance, and that is still to be determined by what happens up in Asheville. But just so incredibly happy for those young men and looking forward to seeing what the rest of this season has to hold for Bob Ritchie's club. A little bit of his press conference from last night. We'll get that to you. And then after the break, Dave Glenn will join us. But after the game, here is a bit of what Bob Ritchie had to say. Take a listen.
Well, got done what we needed to get done, and got out of town with a 22-point win, and was able to send these seniors off on a high note, and got win number 20, which is always a great milestone at this level, and first time since '79, I guess they're saying, since we've done that back-to-back years, and just another milestone that this group has been able to accomplish. And I just said it on the radio. It's in moments like this, it is a little bit of a shame that we're not at a higher level institution that carries a high media volume that could realize how incredible this story is. People just don't get it. They don't get what these 4 kids signed up for. You know, they don't get what the program was like when these 4 guys made a decision to come here. And not only did they decide to come with a vision that Coach Medved and the staff laid out, but they did it. And they did it, and it hasn't been done in a very, very long time. And they did it when nobody thought they could do it. And the only group of people that thought they could do it was this group. And it's just now, you know, we're going to hear about we didn't play great after a 22-point win. Like that's what these guys have created. 22-point wins around here, all right, 5-6 years ago when I first got here, okay, before Coach Medved got here, didn't have a whole lot of those. Now we're going to hear about how weren't all that sharp tonight. 22-point win at home, 20-win season. And it's a credit to not the players, and that's what we miss here. I was listening to our game on TV, and I was listening to the Sanford commentators say twice how it was strange that we don't have a transfer on our roster and that we develop high school kids. That's where this has gotten. But these guys came here with a mission, committed to developing, committed to being a team, and they did that, and that's what college basketball is supposed to be about. And I hope recruits understand that, right? I hope people understand that now all of a sudden when you have culture and when you have connection and when you have good people and you have continuity through development and you don't have transfers and you don't have guys going in and out of your program, that's labeled strange. And that goes along with this story that these guys started, they completed what they wanted to do those first 3 years. They still got some work to be done. They're as determined as they've ever been. And that was a great way to see those guys go out tonight. But it's an incredible story, and it's a credit to all 4 of them.
Andrew was just saying how those guys have sort of changed what it means to be a Furman basketball player. You've made it something special again. Just talk about what they leave behind in terms of the younger players learning from them.
You know, in the issue that we had in the foundations of this program is we had to get rid of the apathy. And I think a lot of times in college basketball, we hear either a good culture or we hear a negative culture. We think everything's either really good or we just assume everything's really bad. A lot of times what kills programs is just pure apathy, right? That you go to weights with no energy. You go to practice with no purpose. You show up in the games and you want everything to take place and go well for you in the limelight, but you don't want to do anything behind the scenes. What this group of guys did was, and again, Steven and Chris and some of these other guys, Kendrick and Larry, it all came together one time, but then they came in as young guys and everything mattered. Every single thing mattered. We'll never forget John Davis and Devin Sibley came in as freshmen and just absolutely crushed every single thing that we had conditioning-wise that we could possibly put in front of them. And Jeff Beans, his energy level, and Daniels Fowler, his leadership and his connection, they came in here and everything mattered. Every rep mattered, every skill workout mattered, every practice mattered. And they had to mature, and we saw that through their freshman year. They had to mature, and they had to learn how to guard. They had to learn how to play in our system. But every single day, regardless of the adversity and regardless of what we were trying to go through, they wanted to get better. They never resisted. And I think what happens is when they started to grow and we turned that thing late when we made the championship run, that brought a little bit of pride in the program. And then we follow that up with 19 wins. And then you get new guys in here and you add good people like Matt and like Andrew and all these guys, Jalen. I mean, you can go down the line. You start adding more good people. It just start now when they walk in here, they're like, wow, you go to weights, this is really important. Man, you go to watch film, like this matters. Like if you want to be in this program, you gotta work while you wait. And then also what they understand is this is a people business. And unfortunately, so much of college basketball is in the people exchange business. We're in the people growth business. And when you have good people, as we say, great people make great dens. When you have good people and they connect and they start growing, this is what you get. And it's not easy, but it's a credit to what these guys have done, and Andrew's correct. They made connection. They brought brotherhood. They brought team, all right? And we use it so cliche, all right? We use it so cliche. They brought true team, and as they started to grow and develop, that's when you start to see this thing completely turn.
All right, that was Bob Ritchie, a good portion of his press conference. You can see the whole thing at FurmanPaladins.com. But is he passionate about his seniors? Yes, he is, and he should be. So it's a nice win. And, I love what he said because I was here, I guess, probably 1 year before he came here. I was here for the last 2 years of the Jeff Jackson era. And he's right. 22-point wins around these parts were not common. In fact, wins in many stretches in and of themselves were not common. So it was it's been a fun thing to watch develop over the years, and looking forward to seeing where it goes because this season's not done yet. All right, we need to take a break. We'll come back, spend some time with Dave Glenn of ACCSports.com, and we'll talk some baseball on the other side of that. And if there's time, let you hear from Daniel Fowler and Andrew Brown after the basketball game last night as well. This is the Dan Scott Show, and we'll return in just a moment.
Holding, number 79, defense, first down. I'm also holding a party tonight.
Great call by the official. Looks like we've got another flag on the field.
Holding, a Pepsi. Necessary refreshment.
Hey, Ted, bring some of that Pepsi to my party.
Pepsi and the NFL. Welcome to the Fun Doesn't End Zone.
Zaxby's food has always brought people together. Catering to the big moments, the little wins, the long talks, and the quick getaways. Because food this inviting is bound to add a lot of flavor to your life.
Introducing the Zax Pack. Served with chicken fingers, sides, Texas toast, and iced tea. Pick one up for dinner or your next event. Friends, family, flavor. Zaxby's. Indescribably good.
I was surprised recently when I learned that Americans spend $80 billion a year on illegal sports gambling. Sure, that's spread out over millions of gamblers, but still it makes you wonder where that money's coming from. Unfortunately, too often it's coming from money that was intended to buy groceries, pay the mortgage, or even put children through college. If gambling's had a negative impact on your life, call the SC Gambling Hotline toll-free at 877-452-5155. Help is confidential and available 24 hours a day. A message from the South Carolina Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services.
The madness begins here. Make sure you're at the U.S. Cellular Center in Asheville, North Carolina, March 1st through 5th for the 2018 SoCon Basketball Championships presented by General Shale. Watch your favorite SoCon teams compete for a championship and a berth in the NCAA tournament, and take part in exciting events like the Downtown Dribble and the Ingles Jam Fest. Book your travel and tickets by logging on to SoConHoops.com or by contacting the U.S. Cellular Center box office. The madness begins in Asheville. Get your tickets today.
All right, we are back. It is 10:30 straight up here on this Wednesday edition of the show. Quick word about Hall's Chop House, downtown Greenville. The Greenville Steakhouse, located on Main, right there beside 7 on Main, News Channel 7's downtown studio. Open for dinner 7 nights a week, for brunch on Sundays. Live music every time the doors are open. And, oh, by the way, the food is just absolutely phenomenal. Angie and I had dinner there a few Friday nights ago, as I've been telling you, and the Allen Brothers Prime Steaks lived up to their billing and then some. And, in fact, they were so big that we both took food home and had another full meal for the next day. The people there are great. They take customer service and the attention to detail with every single table to the nth degree, and they do it when there may be 200, 250 people in there, and they're able to provide that kind of attention to you. It's just a phenomenal thing Billy Hall and his people have done there at Hall's Chop House. So I highly suggest you check them out. Tell them you heard about them on the show here. It's Hall's Chop House, the Greenville Steakhouse in downtown Greenville. All right, having said that, we turn our attention now to the celebrity guest line, where Joining us as always on Wednesdays from August to April is Dave Glenn of the appropriately titled David Glenn Show up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and also the big cog in the big wheel that is ACCsports.com. David, good to talk to you again, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Dan. Good to be with you again.
Boy, big shock that we start with the biggest news being off the court or off the field. Seems like an epidemic lately, doesn't it?
It does, and I went a lot of years where the ACC was rarely involved in these headlines, and then seems like one after another. Syracuse got hit. Florida State we've seen get hit. Back in the day, we saw NC State get hit. Carolina got hit in football and then kind of survived the AFAM scandal without any sanctions. And now, of course, it's the relative newcomers, Syracuse and now Louisville, in the biggest way. We went a long time saying, yeah, a lot of seasons had been vacated, but never a national champion in men's basketball. And now the Louisville Cardinals of 2013 are the first to fit that category. And, of course, it has a lot of folks at Louisville upset, and it has a lot of folks in the ACC just tired of the Cardinals dragging this league into the wrong types of headlines.
Well, I was going to ask you because there are a lot of what I would call the ACC old guard that did not want probably the first expansion, and they definitely didn't want this expansion, bringing in Louisville and Syracuse and the partial deal with Notre Dame into the league. And now I would imagine that there are a lot of those people, David, who are sitting back and saying, I told you so, and doing so in more than a slightly smug manner.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, Louisville has never really been a traditional fit for the way the ACC likes to perceive itself, even if you just look at something as objective as university rankings, right? Louisville is not anywhere near as a university, even before you get to athletics, the way private schools like Duke or Wake or Boston College view themselves, or even public universities like UNC and UVA are consistently ranked among the top 5 public universities in the entire country. So Louisville was, I think, even in the eyes of the presidents and chancellors, not a great fit academically, but because it has grown so much as a university, because it had grown so much as an athletic department, with football and baseball and other sports joining men's basketball, which had been a success story for many decades. I think they decided that because those arrows were pointed in the right direction, Louisville could grow into something more like a traditional ACC school. We'll see if that happens in the longer run. But, a lot of folks were talking about Rick Pitino's original sex scandal for him personally. And now more recently, we have the 2013 banner coming down. That news became official this week, and we still don't know the end result of the FBI investigation, which has already led to Rick Pitino and his AD, Tom Jurich, losing their jobs. So, yes, the old guard is kind of smirking and saying, I told you so today. And I'll tell you this, Dan, although it's just for fun observation, there are even people who looked up in the ACC bylaws how many votes are required to vote a school out of the conference. I didn't know the answer to this off the top of my head. Now, it's not going to happen, but there are bylaws that allow the other ACC members, the other 14, if you will, to vote to, reprimand or sanction or even in the extreme, boot out a member that is misbehaving or otherwise doing things that the other 14 members don't like. The answer to the question is 11 out of the other 14. That's the number of votes you need for any of those sanctions, including expulsion. But that's just sort of a curiosity because it's not something that's on the back burner, much less the front burner among the people I know in the ACC.
So, Dave, why did Louisville lose its appeal?
I think the first thing to remember is kind of like in the real civil court system and in the real criminal justice system, your best chance is in the original hearing. When you are making arguments on appeal, it is almost always technicalities and procedural issues rather than we have the better argument, right? At the original hearing, you're arguing we have the better argument. Once it gets in front of the appeals committee, they're only allowed to reverse on a narrow set of circumstances. So I would argue that Louisville really lost this case months ago in front of the original committee because it is extremely hard to win on appeal for a lot of reasons that I won't bore you with, even as a guy who practiced law for a long time. So that's the first thing to remember. The second thing is, Dan, the NCAA gets most sensitive when high-ranking officials are either involved in the wrongdoing or fail to monitor the person who ends up behaving against NCAA rules, or both. And both were in play in the Louisville case. And the bottom line is the NCAA does realize that it is really hard to monitor every athlete in every circumstance. If the wrongdoer is an agent, your school might get punished because you used an ineligible player who took money from that agent. If the wrongdoer is a booster, or maybe even somebody you didn't know was a fan of your school, you can still have to vacate seasons because somebody took money and was ineligible while serving your school. But the NCAA frowns even more so when it's the actual athletic department employees who created the wrongdoing. And in the case of Rick Pitino's own hand-picked director of basketball operations, Andre McGee is the guy who came up with the idea for these sex and escorts and prostitute parties. He's the guy who executed it. He's the guy who polluted the men's basketball dorm with all of these shady figures, and rather than supervising young men in the right way, allowed it to become the disgraceful scandal that it became. And even beyond that, Dan, Andre McGee, again, this is you have 5 most important members of a college basketball program. Your head coach, and I don't mean on the court, obviously, your head coach, 3 full-time assistants, and your director of basketball operations. Those are the 5 most important people in terms of supervising the day-to-day realities of those men's basketball players. Andre McGee was one of those 5. And Rick Pitino was tasked with at least monitoring him. And Rick Pitino, while the NCAA did not accuse him of knowing what went wrong, they did not accuse him of participating in what went wrong. They did ask him a lot of questions about whether he monitored Andre McGee correctly. And if Louisville fans wonder why, even though they had some interesting, and I would argue even some good arguments on appeal, if they wonder the bottom line to why they lost, it is A, Andre McGee, one of the 5 most important people, was the creator of all the wrongdoing. And B, when Rick Pitino was asked about monitoring Andre McGee, and he was found guilty of a failure to monitor charge, he actually said, I delegate to my assistant coaches supervision of Andre and the players on recruiting weekends. I'm the head coach. I barely see these visiting recruits and their families. I hang out for a little while, but I never see them at night. I don't know what they're doing. I delegate those supervision responsibilities to my assistants. Well, when the NCAA interviewed all of the assistant coaches, you know what they said? Rick never delegated that to me. Rick never delegated that to me. Rick never delegated that to me. So what is the NCAA supposed to make of that? Rick says he's barely paying attention. Rick says I told my assistants that they should supervise. And all 3 of his full-time assistants said, Rick never told me that. And then Andre McGee, the 5th member of this circle, is the one creating the rule breaking. That is not going to be received well by the NCAA in a general sense. And it is not going to motivate them to give you the benefit of the doubt on any procedural or other appeals issue, because they view it as a disgrace, and they especially view it as unacceptable when Rick Pitino had those answers to those questions, and when Andre McGee of the 5-man basketball staff was the one creating the problem in the first place.
Yeah, all very interesting. So unless they plan on filing some kind of court lawsuit or something, I would imagine that we've heard the final word on this, right?
Yeah, it's over. It's over. As an NCAA member, you actually have incredibly narrow avenues. You actually sign up saying, when I go through this process, this is the full and final decision, this NCAA appeals committee. There have been extremely narrow exceptions to that rule over time. So this is the end, and Louisville will be and is the first school that has to pull down an NCAA championship banner in men's basketball.
visiting with Dave Glenn of ACCSports.com. I was going to move on to some other stuff, but as I pulled up your website, I saw this headline, and I kind of have to go there because that's just who I am. Because I know that I can hear and have heard a lot of other people say the same thing that apparently a caller said to you on your show in recent days, and that is North Carolina was not punished because they have more money for better attorneys. How much of that is legitimate?
I think it's true that UNC wiggled off the NCAA hook because they had great attorneys and paid them a lot of money and made some fantastic arguments that kind of made the NCAA take a step back and wonder whether they would lose a federal lawsuit if they tried to apply NCAA rules that are not a great fit for academic type issues in the Carolina case, especially given they had an opportunity to do that in Michigan and Auburn and other cases over the years. And they not only did not punish those schools on academic-centric issues, they didn't even put them through the 7-year process that Carolina went through. But the bottom line to me is, even if you give credit to Carolina's lawyers, as they deserve that credit, the reality is this. Even the best lawyers, if you hand them a losing, impossible hand, are not going to get you out of trouble. The best lawyers are at their best when you hand them a gray area case. The improper benefits issue that ended up nailing Louisville is one that's been seen literally thousands of times in the NCAA. Now, not exactly in a sex escort scandal,
right?
But it's improper benefits leading to ineligible athletes, leading to vacated victories and seasons. That's nothing new. There are dozens and dozens, if not hundreds and hundreds of cases in the NCAA jurisdiction over the years that fit that description in the general sense. When you try to look at the details of the Carolina case, again, this is not Andre McGee working for Rick Pitino. This is not Jim Boeheim's academic tutor doing improper work for Syracuse basketball players. This is somebody on the other side of campus who is an academic person, doesn't work for the athletic department, doesn't report to the athletic department, and creates a campus-wide academic scandal that did trickle into athletics. That has never been seen under those exact circumstances in the history of the NCAA. And when you have a first case of its kind, that's when good lawyers start just sharpening their teeth and having their mouth water about over what they can do with that gray area wiggle room. If you hand a great attorney a losing case, 99 times out of 100, they're still going to lose. You hand great attorneys a gray area case, that's where you get the bang for your buck. But keep this in mind, Dan, Notre Dame's a far wealthier university than UNC is. Notre Dame had plenty of high-priced attorneys as well. Notre Dame just lost its appeal to the NCAA. That's another example. When the facts are against you, even the best attorneys have a really hard time getting you off the hook. When the facts are in this weird, haven't seen anything quite like this before gray area, that's where the attorneys can be at their best.
One other thing I want to ask you about, and I guess we're probably not going to get to anything happening on the court today, but in the bigger picture, the story that came out, I think it was late last week after we'd already done last week's show, from Pete Thamel at Yahoo Sports, saying in effect that he had talked to someone who knew what was in that 4,000-page voluminous FBI investigation and all the hours and hours of phone calls that they have recorded and all of this. According to that story, college basketball, if that information is released, is due for a shakeup like we have never seen in the history of NCAA athletics. What do you make of all that?
Couple things. Number one, Pete's a very good investigative journalist, so I take his work seriously. Number two, this is different because the FBI has a much better track record of getting to the truth than the NCAA ever has.
Absolutely.
And it's not because of, we've been through this before, subpoena power, forcing people to testify, being able to wiretap phones, et cetera. The NCAA can't do that. The FBI has done that, and that's why they have such a compelling mountain of evidence against various people in this wire fraud case. The one thing that I would add for fans is it is extremely unlikely that we're going to have answers this calendar year. In other words, this NCAA tournament is going to be played. I can't tell you if a year from now or 2 years from now, some FBI information is handed over to the NCAA, and then retroactively they say, hey, you won a lot of games, or maybe you won the national title while using an ineligible player based on this FBI investigation. We could have another Louisville down the road. Somebody wins the national title, and then down the road they have to vacate it because of information that's not yet public, but that the FBI already has in its back pocket. That is going to be a long calendar to play out. It is very unlikely to happen this calendar year. There are 3 ongoing criminal cases, Dan. Some of them don't even begin until the spring of 2019. And remember, the trials have to play out, and even after they do, it's not clear which parts of the FBI material is simply either A, going to become public, or B, just handed over to the NCAA. There are a lot of questions about all of that, and that's why I say that Pete raises the possibility of an Armageddon-type scenario. Mm-hmm. But in my eyes, it's not crystal clear that that's going to happen because there's so much uncertainty about what info becomes public and what info is handed over to the NCAA.
Yeah, I think the thing that jumped out to me more than anything was, and this was done right after the committee had released its, if the season started today, these are your top 16 teams.
Right.
Saying in that story that half of those 16 teams would not be eligible for the postseason if that information were available today. That's pretty startling.
Yeah, he actually used the phrase almost half.
Almost half.
Had us debating, is almost half 6 or is almost half 7? I'm not sure. I don't know. So let's say 6 or 7 out of the 16, if his speculation turns out to be right. We already know 2 because their assistant coaches have been arrested, right? Mm-hmm. So who are the other 4 or 5? I don't know. But anybody in that Sweet 16 certainly has their radar up, because if Pete's article proves truly on target, then yes, Hall of Fame coaches is what he said are going to be taken down. That doesn't mean, by the way, a Hall of Fame coach participated in the wrongdoing. It could mean that a Hall of Fame coach had no idea a star player was taking a lot of money through a shoe company executive or somebody else. There are all sorts of possibilities. I just don't think we're really very close to learning the truth beyond, those 4 assistant coaches who have already been arrested.
All right, Dave, for those who actually want to get some of the doings on the court on the ACC, tell them how they can find that or more about what we've been talking about.
Yeah, ACCsports.com is the best place to go. We have a great quarterly glossy magazine. We have a fun biweekly newsletter. And, of course, it's all day, every day online. A lot of free stuff. We also have password subscriptions, of course, but it all starts right there. If you're a Twitter user, follow us at ACC Sports and at David Glenn Show. But all online, it all starts at ACCsports.com.
As usual, my friend, we greatly appreciate it and look forward to talking to you next week.
Thanks, Dan. Always fun, bud. Take care.
All right, that is Dave Glenn, ACCsports.com. We will step aside. We will come back, and when we do, we are going to talk some Furman baseball. That's on the other side as the Dan Scott Show continues on this Wednesday here in just a moment. The Atlanta Bread Company wants to make your dining experience as convenient as possible, especially if you're ordering takeout. Go online to atlantabreadcompany.com, place your order there, and pay for it too. Then, when you get to the restaurant at Cherrydale Point, you breeze right by the cash registers and go straight to the pickup counter where your food will be waiting. And speaking of food, try the new Shrimp Po' Boy, a delicious and surprisingly healthy addition to the already great menu. That's the Atlanta Bread Company, Cherrydale Point in Greenville.
The madness begins here. Make sure you're at the U.S. Cellular Center in Asheville, North Carolina, March 1st through 5th for the 2018 SoCon Basketball Championship presented by General Shale. Watch your favorite SoCon teams compete for a championship and a berth in the NCAA tournament, and take part in exciting events like the Downtown Dribble and the Ingles Jam Fest. Book your travel and tickets by logging on to SoConHoops.com or by contacting the U.S. Cellular Center box office. The madness begins in Asheville. Get your tickets today.
Let me tell you something, Cowboy. This rookie can really bring the heat.
He's smoky and spicy with a Chipotle style all his own.
It's a new Montgomery Inn Chipotle barbecue sauce. Make it a part of your home team.
Available now at your neighborhood grocer or online at CincyFavorites.com.
Our thanks to Dave Glenn, ACCSports.com, for jumping in with us as always on Wednesdays. I'm Dan Scott. Good to have you with us as we continue on the program here. A quick word, if we can, about our newest sponsor, Security Complete, a home security service and business here in the upstate. Local ownership, installation, and service, no subcontractors. The guys who are doing this have a combined 40 years of industry experience. No contracts they're going to try to lock you into. You buy the equipment, and then you can have the service as long as you want. You can end it at any time. You're not going to want to, though, because the monthly cost for the monitoring is much lower than the competition. And it covers everything: intrusion, fire, video, carbon monoxide, all the way down the line. And the thing that I like about it, as I've told you when we first started talking about them a couple of weeks ago, I was with another well-known local company here in the upstate and was completely and 100% satisfied with my service until they were bought out by a larger company. And then the first time we had an issue where I was away and we accidentally set off the alarm out at the Scott Family Ranch, I got a phone call from an 800 number that I did not recognize. I thought it was a telemarketer, and I declined the call, and it turns out it was this company. Well, it ended up with the sheriff coming out and asking my wife if she was really okay or if there was somebody else in the house there, and causing an uproar that didn't need to take place. I know now that if we accidentally set off the alarm, or if something legitimately happens and that phone call comes, it's going to either say Security Complete when it pops up, or it's going to come from a Charlotte area code, 704. I will know exactly who that is. I can put it into my phone so it'll say who it is when they call, and I don't have that issue anymore. You can get that kind of security and local service as well by getting Security Complete to be your home security provider. On Facebook, you can find them at Security Complete, or you can give them a call at 864-546-0360, 546-0360. And as always, please tell them that you heard about them here on the Dan Scott Show. All right, so last night out at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, Paladins fell by a final score of 12-4. It was a pretty good ball game through 5. In fact, it was an excellent game through 4 innings. It was 1-1 going to the 5th, and actually going to the bottom of the 5th inning. And with 2 outs, Chris Williams hit a 3-run home run for Clemson the opposite way that made it a 4-1 game, and they added another run in the inning to make it 5-1. That was off of Nick Verbeck, who was tagged with the loss in relief. And Clemson would go on to add 2 more in the 6th, 5 in the 7th, before the Paladins put a couple up in the 8th and 1 in the 9th. And the final, again, was 12-4. 18th straight time Furman has lost to Clemson, and it's starting to get a little more than just a little aggravating. I can tell you that. But what were the positives out of last night? Well, Trent Alley did not have great command as the starter, but for 2 2/3 innings, he battled, allowed 3 hits, but only the 1 run, and it was unearned. He only walked 1, but was behind in the count a lot, hit a batter, did strike out 3 through 59 pitches, and he had not been stretched out with the anticipation of being a starter, but was pressed into that because of a couple of injuries that have cropped up. So all in all, I didn't think he was bad. It's obviously going to be incumbent upon him to get better control and have better command and pitch ahead in the count. But the couple of guys that I thought threw the ball well coming out of the bullpen last night, again, the story that at least early in the season is beginning to develop with Jonathan Mao, who came on and threw an inning and a third of scoreless relief, struck out 2, did not walk anybody. He did hit a batter, but that was the only blip in the 4 batters that he faced. And again, this is a young man who missed 2 seasons with Tommy John surgery. So as an academic junior and a redshirt sophomore, over the weekend on Saturday, he made his first appearance of his career, pitched 2 innings and got a save, and then an inning and a third shutout hitless baseball with a couple of strikeouts at Clemson last night. I thought that John Michael Bertrand at times threw the ball pretty well, and we saw young Mr. Beatson pitch for the first time, and he threw a scoreless inning late in the ball game as well. So there were a couple of things that you could take away from a positive standpoint. Offensively, Jason Costa, Jabari Richards had 2 hits apiece. Costa drove in 2 of the 4 runs on the afternoon. Nick Tiano had the other RBI, and that was on a ground out late in the ball game, and there was 1 run that scored due to an error. But in any event, the perfect start to the season ends. Furman now 3-1 on the season, and now will go on the road for 3 games in Raleigh against North Carolina State. A little bit of a change from a broadcast standpoint of what I told you last night. The first 2 days will remain the same. I'll be doing basketball Friday in Cullowhee, so it'll be the NC State broadcast that'll be available. I will be there on Saturday to do the Fox Sports 1440 broadcast, plus all of our other outlets, including the Campus FM here. But then Sunday, instead of staying there and doing an internet-only broadcast, I am going to come back. I'm going to go to Johnson City, do the regular season finale in basketball, and leave you to the NC State broadcast for that game. So it'll be one of the 3 games. Then we'll be on the bus with the team to Columbia down in to take on South Carolina on Tuesday as this very difficult 5-game stretch plays itself out. It'll be intriguing to see how Furman's weekend rotation does against an ACC opponent this weekend up in Raleigh against North Carolina State. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to a big weekend of basketball as well, as the Paladins look to close out the regular season strong, nail down that number 3 spot, which would guarantee them the 8:30 game on Saturday, which means that we would not miss another baseball broadcast. We'll talk more about that later on. But still more to get to, more to be done, and we'll be here to talk about all of it, cover it all, break it all down for you as the week and the weekend continues to play out. That's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you so much for your attention this morning. I hope you enjoyed the program. We'll be back with you tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you. So long, everybody.